It was the coldest morning in Montana's history, so cold, it felt like the mountains themselves were shivering. Tom Wilson was standing in his kitchen, sipping coffee, thinking it would be just another quiet winter day. The thermometer outside his window read a bone-chilling -40 degrees. The wind outside howled through the valley like a wild animal, fierce and unforgiving. But the cold wasn't what made Tom drop his coffee mug. He glanced toward his frosted living room window and froze. Then, standing upright against the glass, was a massive grizzly bear. Her fur was crusted with snow and ice, and behind her were 3 small cubs, huddled tightly together, trembling violently in the deadly cold. But here's the twist, it wasn't an attack. She wasn't angry or looking for food. She was knocking, literally knocking. Her massive paw tapped rhythmically on the window, slow and steady, like she was trying to send a message. Tom could hardly believe what he was seeing. This being, a wild grizzly, wasn't acting like any wild animal he'd ever heard of. She wasn't aggressive. She wasn't frantic. She was pleading. Behind her, the smallest cub collapsed into the snow. It just fell. Its tiny body stopped moving, and Tom felt something in his chest twist. The mother's reaction? It wasn't what you'd expect. No panic, no wild growling. She turned, gently picked up the cub in her jaws, and walked back to the window. With a kind of fear that felt almost human, she pressed the limp little body against the glass, as if to say, "Please, help." The wind outside screamed louder, pushing snow against the house in thick, blinding sheets. Ice was forming rapidly on the cub's fur. Tom could actually see it happening from where he stood. The cubs were shivering so violently, it shook Tom to his core. And then, something unbelievable happened. The mother bear sat back on her haunches and raised both of her front paws, almost like she was praying. Not waving, not falling, praying. Her eyes locked onto Tom's through the glass. Intense, intelligent, desperate. That's when the second cub stumbled and fell, just like the first. The third one stayed close to its mother, letting out tiny, heartbreaking whimpers that somehow cut through the howling wind and thick window pane. Tom couldn't move. His feet felt frozen, not from the cold, but from pure disbelief. This bear wasn't just reacting to danger. She was asking for help, not like an animal, like a parent. Then she did something that sent chills through Tom that had nothing to do with the temperature. She scooped up a bit of snow with her palm and began marking the window with it. Slow, deliberate movements. Not random scratches or pawing. These were patterns, shapes, like crude symbols. Emergency alerts started going off on Tom's phone. Warnings of even colder temperatures and blizzard conditions moving in. The danger wasn't coming. It was already there. She came back to the window again, now more frantic. One by one, she picked up her cubs and held them up to the glass. It was like she was saying, "Look what's happening. They need you." The smallest cub had stopped shaking. That was a bad sign, a deadly one. Tom had lived in Montana all his life. He knew bears, knew their habits, and he knew they were supposed to be hibernating right now. So whatever drove this bear family out of their den in the middle of a brutal winter had to be catastrophic. Then came the moment that would stick with Tom forever. The mother bear pressed her paw to the window, leaving a perfect print in the thrust. And then she made a sound. Not a growl, not a roar. Something softer. Something that sounded almost like a plate. She stood up again, fully upright, and placed both paws on the glass, mirroring human hands. The connection between them was undeniable now. The tiniest cub lay completely still, barely breathing. And the mother? She gently cradled that baby again, pressed it against the window, and let out soft, aching whimpers. If those sounds had words, they would have said, "Please, my child is dying." The 2 other cubs began to mirror their mother's actions. The middle one, barely strong enough to stand, raised a trembling palm and tapped the glass. The largest one pressed against its mother's side and let out a soft sound that sounded hauntingly close to a child crying. Tom couldn't believe what he was seeing. This was no ordinary animal behavior. The mother turned back to the snow and again began drawing shapes, each one more deliberate than the last. After each mark, she looked up at Tom, then to her cubs, then back to Tom, again and again, trying to send a message. The middle cub collapsed next. Just like that, it was down. The mother didn't hesitate. She pulled both collapsed cubs to her chest, trying to warm them with her own body, while still begging at the window. The remaining cub, still upright, pressed its tiny face to the glass, and made a sound so full of fear and sorrow that it would haunt Tom for years. And then, the mother bear made her most shocking move yet. She laid her cubs gently into the snow, looked directly at Tom, and then, using her paws, mimicked opening a door. Clear as day. Then she bowed her head low, completely submissive. That was the moment Tom knew he had to act. He'd never seen anything like this. Not in the woods. Not in documentaries. Not in his wildest dreams. These were wild animals. But what they were doing, how they were communicating, it felt like something out of a different world. The mother bear continued her pleading, gently pawing the snow, sometimes pressing her forehead to the glass, then raising her paws in prayer once again. The last cub still conscious copied her. That same surreal, prayer-like gesture. Tom grabbed onto his kitchen counter, steadying himself. He could barely breathe. This wasn't just a cry for help. It was a conversation. And then, he made a decision. One that would change his life forever. He walked toward the door. Slowly, the mother bear watched his every move, her eyes following him like she understood exactly what he was doing. His hand reached for the doorknob. The world went still. The door creaked open, just a few inches. Enough to reach out. Enough to offer warmth. But before Tom could do anything else, the mother bear made the first move. Tom stood at the door, heart pounding. The mother bear's eyes never left him, filled with a silent question that needed no words. When he finally turned the knob and cracked open the door, the world seemed to hold its breath. Just then, something completely unexpected happened. Something no one, not even seasoned wildlife experts, would have believed if it weren't captured on camera. Instead of barging in, the mother bear picked up her smallest cub, barely clinging to life, and with slow, cautious steps, approached the open doorway. She gently placed the tiny creature just past the threshold, then backed away, lowering her massive head in what could only be described as submission. It was as if she understood she was entering sacred ground, someone else's home, and was asking permission. Inside, the warmth of the house began to work quickly. The frozen tub stirred ever so slightly, and Tom, he stood there frozen, not from the cold, but from the sheer disbelief of what was unfolding before him. But the moment wasn't over. The bear didn't rush to follow her cub. She instead pointed. Yes, pointed, with her paw toward the other two cubs still outside. Then, she looked at Tom. There was no mistaking it. She was asking if they, too, could come inside. Almost in a trance, Tom noted. As the door opened wider, the mother turned and gently nudged her remaining cubs forward. They walked in a straight line, single file, as if they'd rehearsed it. Each paused briefly at the doorway, like children being taught manners, then stepped inside with a quietness that felt respectful. And then came the most shocking part of all. The mother bear approached the door, but stopped. She looked down, wiped her paws deliberately in the snow, brushing off chunks of ice and slush, and only then lifted her head to meet Tom's eyes. The look said it all. Is it okay if I come in? Tom, awestruck, stepped aside. The massive grizzly entered with more grace than some humans. She moved delicately, carefully, heading straight toward the corner where her cubs were now curled up, slowly warming. She didn't sniff around, didn't explore. She simply checked her young, curled around them, and kept her eyes locked on Tom. Then, as if this story couldn't get any more surreal, the mother bear did something unbelievable. She spotted a blanket that had fallen off the couch. With gentle jaws, she picked it up and draped it over her cubs. No tearing, no chewing, just a clear understanding of what the blanket was for and how to use it. And still, it didn't stop then. She kept her family tucked into a small corner near the fireplace, never letting them wander or explore. When the middle cub attempted to wobble toward a nearby bookshelf, the mother bear emitted a low, safe sound, a clear correction. The cub immediately returned to her side. There was no wild behavior, no destruction, just quiet awareness and control. Then, from beneath the couch, Tom's cat whiskers cautiously peeked out. Tom braced himself for chaos. But the mother bear's reaction? She slowly drew her cubs closer, making a soft, calming rumble in her throat. The cubs sat still, watching the cat with curiosity, but no threat. The mother lowered her head until she was nearly face to face with Whiskers, staying perfectly still, as if trying not to frighten the little creature. Tom seemed to bend inside that room. The bears, now recovering in the warmth, showed an intelligence and tone that defied everything Tom thought he knew. One of the tubs accidentally knocked over a vase. The mother bear picked it up with her palm. Yes, her palm. And tried to place it back where it had been. It didn't fall again. At that point, Tom didn't know what reality he was living in. The bear then began tidying up. Seriously, she used the corner of a fallen newspaper to dab up some water on the floor where the snow had melted. She pushed all the bits of slush and ice her family had tracked in into a neat pile. Every few minutes, she would glance at Tom, as if asking, "Am I doing this right?" Even more incredible was how the tubs followed her lead. They didn't leap on furniture, or explore, or cause any trouble. They stayed near the fireplace, moving only when their mother allowed it. And when Tom placed a bowl of water nearby, the tubs didn't drink right away. They looked to their mother first. Only after she noted. Yes, she noted. Did they approach it? They drank tearfully, not spilling a drop. Just as Tom thought he couldn't be surprised any further, his phone rang loudly on the tower. A wild animal's instinct would be to startle, flee, react with panic or aggression. But not this bear. She calmly gathered her tubs closer, waiting for the sound to stop. Then, this is where things went beyond belief. She pointed to the phone, then to herself, then to the door. The message was fleeting. People might be coming. We should go. This understanding, this reasoning, was on a whole different level. She wasn't just reacting. She was interpreting. As her tubs regained their strength, the mother bear gently guided them toward the door. But before leaving, she did one last thing that stunned Tom. She had each tub wipe its paws on the doormat. Not kidding. One by one, under her instruction, the young bears mimicked the same motion she had shown earlier. Wipe, wipe. No snow left behind. Then came a scene so powerful it would go viral across the world. Standing at the door, the mother lined up her tubs side by side. A farewell ceremony. The smallest tub, fully recovered, stepped forward, placed its paw over its chest, then extended it toward Tom, almost like a salute. The middle tub added a small bow. The largest let out a safe sound, a kind of grateful hum that echoed through the quiet room. And then the mother stepped forward. She held Tom's gaze, moved with slow, measured steps, and gently placed her paw on his arm. Just for a moment. The message was unmistakable. Thank you. She backed away slowly, never turning her back. I still looked on his. And before stepping out, she turned and did something even more astonishing. She began cleaning the area where they'd entered. She used snow to wipe away the prints, brushing down the mat, the floor, the doorway. Then she gathered her tubs and prepared for the journey back into the wild. As they stepped outside, the snow falling heavily once more, the mother bear turned back one last time. She raised her paw in a slow wave. Each of her tubs copied her. Tom grabbed the door frame for support. He wasn't sure if he was crying or just numb from disbelief. As the bear family disappeared into the whiteout, the cold wind seemed to hush, just for a moment. Tom stood in the doorway long after they were gone, unsure if what had just happened was real or some kind of miracle. The only proof that it hadn't been a dream was the faint outline of paw prints in the snow and the perfect frost print still on the window. Word spread fast. Wildlife experts, local authorities, even skeptics from around the country came to Tom's cabin in the following weeks. He showed them the footage from his security cameras, because yes, it had all been reported. Every pearl-like gesture, every paw print, every moment, and no one could explain it. Biologists confirmed that the bears had no visible injuries, no signs of illness, and nothing to suggest they should have left hibernation, let alone approached a human for help. Even stranger, researchers said grizzlies don't teach their cubs the kind of behaviors Tom witnessed. Wiping their feet, holding still around other animals, pointing at objects. That kind of intelligence was unprecedented. What they didn't see, however, was what stuck with Tom the most. They didn't see the moment of eye contact, the emotion, the understanding. They saw bears. But Tom had seen something more. He started calling the mother bear Matilda, a name that, to him, felt strong and wise. And though she never returned, he often thought about her. On quiet nights, when the wind howled through the trees, he'd imagine her out there somewhere, leading her cubs, teaching them the way she had taught them in his living room. And then, nearly a year later, it happened again. Not a bear at the window, not a knock, but a single item, placed carefully on Tom's front porch one snowy morning. A bundle of mountain flowers and pine cones, arranged in a perfect circle. Beside it, a single paw print, pressed into the snow like a signature. It hadn't melted. It was fresh, precise, and for Tom, it said more than any words ever could. Not goodbye, but we remember. And somewhere in the cold wilds of Montana, for bears, run large, free growing fast, move with a grace and intelligence that no one can explain. Because maybe, just maybe, they were changed by the warmth of one human heart. And maybe, just maybe, they changed us right back.